TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because someone pointed out in the comments that you smile every time I say TikTok, time to rock.
Well, I'll try to be solemn. Let's try it again. Take two.
TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. I'm your friendly neighborhood philosopher, David Wood, and with me now is the man who never smiles or laughs at anything, Robert Spencer. How you doing, Robert?
Well, you know, the author of the Quran has to be solemn.
Got Solomon Grim. Solomon Grim.
Deeply
Yeah, just so everyone knows, to anticipate, I'll be deleting this YouTube channel next month, but there will be a video about that in the morning. So check that out when you get a chance tomorrow. I'll have everything up and running. Basically going to massively restructure in every way I could think of restructuring that would make me better off in terms of not being censored involved destroying this channel and building in a different fashion. So more on that tomorrow. With that said, Robert,
Yes.
I don't think I've heard much of anything this week about Jihad. So have you heard anything?
David, I'm sorry to say jihad is raging around the world. You would think that it's Ramadan is over and we're getting into summer, time for little relaxation, cookouts, but no. More jihad.
That's weird.
And so, yeah, it's really very strange, but I can't explain it. I'm sure it probably has to do with poverty and ignorance.
It's got to, and don't forget climate change, Robert. Climate change. I've heard that repeatedly as the explanation for jihad. As the climate changes, jihadis have to leave one area because of the climate change, and then they go to another area where they're radicalized and go on a killing spree.
Of course. Or they have to have a rationale for seizing the land in the new area, like the Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria. And so they just conveniently happen upon the doctrine of jihad.
Mm-hmm. Very, very
Now,
strange.
I've heard this many times, what you're saying. It's ridiculous, of course, but it does lead me to a lead story this week, and it's a dumb infidel story that I thought was kind of ironic, just because, well, you'll see as we go through it. This is a story that's only tangentially jihad, actually. It's about the actress Mia Farrow, who you may remember from...
Is that one of those
Rosemary-
old school? That
I
sounds
don't
like
know,
that
how old
sounds
is your student, David?
that sounds like something from one of the movies like my wife watches and tries to get me to watch, and I'm like, no.
That may be so, but in any case, she did give birth to the devil in one movie, so you have to give her that. In any case, she was responding to a tweet from Rob Reiner, the famous actor who was the meathead
I know
on
him.
the Family TV show.
I know
And
Meathead.
so he says, it's simple. Republicans don't respect women. And Mia Farrow responded, they'd be happy to impose Sharia laws. Now, I thought this was interesting on several levels. One is, Mia Farrow's heard of Sharia? Very interesting. Second, Mia Farrow doesn't like Sharia? And I think, of course, it's because she's talking about non-Muslim Americans that she can speak in a way that is negative about Sharia. I am 100% certain that in any context involving actual Sharia, particularly involving the treatment of women, Mia Farrow would be warmly positive and complimentary and probably disparage anyone who criticized the treatment of women in Islam for having a white savior complex or some such.
Yeah, if it had been if the story that or situation she had been commenting on had involved something with some jihad group or something like that, and she said something about they want to they'd be happy to impose Sharia on you, man, she'd be in trouble. How dare you?
So it's interesting that a certain kind of people in the United States today, as well as in Europe, feel free to criticize Sharia when they're using it to speak about non-Muslims who are not applying Sharia. But they would never dare to criticize Sharia, and they would actually be angry at the people who do criticize Sharia when they're talking about the actual genuine article.
Now, I actually think that's kind of cool, Robert. I mean, if people started talking about Sharia negatively, but only when it applies to some imaginary non-Islamic version of Sharia, but they're using it as an insult. They're using it to insult people. You are trying to impose Sharia. Not the Sharia that has anything to do with Islam, but Sharia. And if they could actually bring it back to where it has a negative connotation for them, that would help us in the long run, I think.
Indeed. Well, it does have a negative connotation for them. This Mia Farrow incident shows that. They just would never admit it explicitly.
But
It only comes out in these kind of indirect and accidental ways.
by the way, did any of these standard, Linda Sarsour, any of these people jump in and say, "What do you mean? Sharia is just choosing what we want to eat and praying when we want to pray. What are you talking about?" None of that.
I don't think so. But did delete the tweet later, and so the record's not there, but also it indicates that maybe she did get a bit of flack for this. Meanwhile, speaking of fantasy Islam taking up space in the minds of dumb infidels, the Audi Automobile Corporation published a sales video that says "Celebrate Diversity," and the tweet that they put out with the video says, "For EU Diversity Month, Audi is setting an example when it comes to diversity. This video shows what that means and why diversity is only effective through inclusion. Celebrate diversity." And so they have this video with all these people of different colors walking around doing various things. And I think, why is this? Does anybody think this is going to make me want to buy an Audi? But that's another story. If they want to position themselves as the car of the woke, that's their business. But what was interesting about the ad was that in the middle of it, it has a very severe-looking young woman wearing a black hijab and unsmiling, looking straight at the camera, and she holds up a gay flag, the rainbow flag. Very, very slowly and solemnly raises it in front of her. Now, imagine the vanishingly small subset of women who wear hijab who support gay rights. Now, mind you, there may be women who wear hijab who support gay rights but wouldn't dare to raise the gay flag publicly because they're wearing the hijab under duress because they know they'll be beaten or killed if they don't wear it. Whereas while secretly they hold to the values of Western secular society, and consequently they would happily hold a rainbow flag, but they would never dare to do it in public any more than they would dare to take off their hijab in public. What you need for the Audi ad to work is a Muslim woman who is willing to buck Sharia publicly and yet not willing enough to buck Sharia publicly to take off her hijab. And I think this is really, how many people could this possibly be? Probably it's more likely what we have here is a case of Audi indulging in the fantasy Islam that people in the West want to believe exists, that is completely compatible with Western secular 21st century pluralism.
And if they really wanted the sort of diversity that the various companies of the world are trying to impose, it actually involves real Islam, right? I mean, the kind of ideological diversity that YouTube imposes is actually you can legitimately call for genocide against non-Muslims. You can call for the future violent subjugation of the entire world. So you've got Ali Dawa saying that apostates have to be killed, and he's proud of that. You've got Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, who's just laying out a plan for his viewers, and he's very popular. He's laying out a plan for his viewers, telling his viewers, guys, our community is not strong enough right now, but we need to be preparing and building for the future so that in 40 or 50 years, we can go door to door and knock and say, look, you're either going to convert or you're going to pay us protection money, or his sound effect, not mine. That's what he says. We're gonna slit your throat if you do not accept this. That's fine, but if we criticize it, suddenly, well, out of nowhere, we just get banned by YouTube, as has happened repeatedly. So in actual practice, if a car company or another company wanted to say, "Hey, this is the diversity we're actually imposing on you," it wouldn't be a girl in a hijab holding up a gay rights flag. It would be someone like, Ali Dawa holding up things saying, we want to execute them. We want to execute them, and it's okay because diversity, right? It's diversity, and if you don't allow us to do that, you're being intolerant towards us.
Ali with a head, man, with a severed head.
Yeah, and to follow up, it would have to be, and no one's allowed to criticize us because our diversity includes the fact that no one is allowed to ever criticize us. And as morally insane as all of that sounds, that's what they actually do in practice. They can do whatever they want in their commercials, but when they actually try to promote various ideologies, this is what they end up doing. It's nuts.
Hey, you're mentioning these YouTube Dawa guys. Reminds me, whatever happened to that guy who said he got stabbed in where was it, in San Diego?
Oh yeah, Sheikh Uthman. Yeah, I've never seen any follow-up evidence. Several people have contacted the police station, Freedom of Information Act, requesting police reports. We haven't been able to find anything, which is very strange. He said he'd filed the report, and the police had the weapon, and they had the video, they had everything, and they're going to get this guy, and not a peep from anyone after that. So very strange, considering this was an anti-Muslim hate crime, according to Sheikh Uthman.
Very strange, yes. What on earth could account for it?
Oh, and by the way, people are putting over here, they're commenting what's actually been happening with him since then. They're saying Ibn Footnote. They're calling him, for a while they're calling him Sheikh Ibn Fibbin, and now they're calling him Sheikh Ibn Footnote because
why is he the footnote?
Well, one thing you find when you talk to him is he's a compulsive liar. He just keeps lying, right? It's very difficult to get his followers to understand that he's lying, right? Like, you can literally put something in front of their faces saying, look, that's the opposite. It says the opposite of what he just said, but they'll believe him and not you. I mean, who are you to comment on the Quran? But there was a situation where a Christian apologist, God Logic, shows up and starts asking him for some information, and something. I didn't follow the entire story. I followed it, later in Twitter clips and so on. But Sheikh Uthman said he would give the information later, and then God Logic showed up next time, and then Sheikh Ibn Fibbin produced what he claimed a hadith, looked like it was in Arabic, produced a hadith to verify what he was saying. And what he had done was include a footnote as if it were part of the hadith, because it was the footnote that he was using, and he had to massively misrepresent what the text was saying. But it's the idea of including a footnote in the text and pretending that it was part of the hadith. And other than that, he couldn't produce anything to defend what he was saying, just a footnote. But it was the fact that he was representing it, like he had cut and pasted, I think, and put it into the hadith to make it look like it was part of the hadith, thinking that people aren't going to call him out on it. But that's the problem with these guys who build their careers on compulsive lying. As soon as people start paying attention to you and are going to and start calling you out for it, you just start getting exposed left and right, and then you don't know what to do. And so he's getting more, based on the couple clips I've seen, it seems like he's getting more violent and aggressive and trying to start fights now with people. But yep, these are the champions of Dawa. So what should we expect?
Honest as the day is long, every one of them. Okay. Out of Virginia, we have a story Zahida Aman, Mohammed Nauman Chowdhury, and Mohammed Rehan Chowdhury will face sentencing for conspiracy to commit forced labor. It seems that they were keeping a slave in their comfortable home in Richmond, Virginia. Now, what on earth would make them think that they could do that in Virginia? Might it have to do with the fact that Muhammad bought slaves, took captives of slaves, owned slaves himself, that the Quran takes slavery for granted and never abolished it? There is actually, people say, well, there's slavery in the Bible as well, so it's worth noting that while that is true, at the same time, there's also the idea of the universal dignity of every human being in the Bible, which is what became the basis for the abolitionist movements in Britain and America. Whereas in the Quran and in Islamic tradition in general, there is no idea of the universal dignity of every human being, particularly of the unbelievers. And consequently, there is no basis for that kind of abolitionist movement.
Yep. And by the way, we've heard a lot of those stories over the years, haven't we? About someone keeping a slave in the UK, keeps keeping a slave in Europe or this or that country.
Oh, yeah. And it's happened more than once in the U.S. as well before this. This is not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's one out of Australia that is particularly sickening. The 5 members of a woman's family, including her father, mother, sister, and brother, have been charged with attempted murder and false imprisonment of this 21-year-old woman who was stabbed in the abdomen with a large kitchen knife, suffered a perforated kidney, lacerated liver, and significant internal bleeding. Her sister held her down so that her father could stab her.
Stabbed in the abdomen.
Indeed. And this is
like Sheikh Uthman.
Like Sheikh Uthman, only probably this is a little bit more serious because real charges have been brought. A real investigation is being undertaken. This is going to court. And what we get from it is this. Over the course of a number of days, the family members of the victim became aware of her entering into a relationship with a man of a different faith. And consequently, they began to stalk her, to follow her. Ultimately, they attacked her own family members. Because, of course, Islam does not allow a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man. And she was therefore staining the honor of the family. They had to cleanse it.
Quick shout out to Rob Christian here. I posted a quick comment by him. But ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned at the beginning, if you weren't here, that I'm going to be deleting this channel. Guys, keep in mind, before you flip out, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think that I could do something, if I could put together a better system. But before I delete my channel, I would like to make some sort of video telling everyone which channels to follow and so on to get plenty of information about apologetics and Islam. So Rob Christian is one of those channels. Be sure to subscribe there. And if you'd like to, if there are any other channels you can think of for when I would share this, post them in the comments after this video, and I'll check out all the various channels and so on.
Pretty good.
All right, back to Jihad.
Okay, also in the United States, I had a few more in the United States, but shouldn't have gone to Australia first. Anyway, Dallas, Texas, an Iraqi who entered into the country in September 2020 did surveillance at former President George W. Bush's house and was plotting, quite an elaborate plot really, to murder George W. Bush in retaliation for what he said were the killings of numerous Iraqis by American troops in Iraq after the 2003 invasion. He paid considerable amount of money. He was associated with the ISIS caliph Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and he paid a lot of money to get several associates into the United States in order to carry out this plot. So this was not just some singular nut doing this. Interesting that he said that he didn't care if he died during the attack, and of course that's understandable from an Islamic standpoint, although of course that part is not in the story, that he understood that paradise was guaranteed to those who kill and are killed for Allah, as per the Quran, chapter 9, verse 111. So consequently, he didn't care if he died while killing Bush. And this gentleman, whose name is Shihab Ahmed Shihab, he was so awesome, they named him 3 times.
That's a pretty cool name, actually.
It is. It's right up
wait,
there.
Could you say it again real quick?
Shihab Ahmed Shihab.
Shihab Ahmed Shihab. Shihab Ahmed Shihab. He's got his own little chorus there already for a song, theme song.
Yeah, see, he could have had a big career in music, but instead, murdering Bush. Anyway, it's interesting to note that I don't want to get it too political here, but the former President Donald Trump had put a ban on the entry of nationals from a number of countries, and this was because the governments involved would not or could not provide adequate information about the people wanting to come in. And Iraq was one of those countries, but then the ban was stopped in court, and the Iraqi government lobbied very heavily, and Trump was under heavy pressure. So ultimately, he was able to get a ban on several countries that was called a Muslim ban, and he was reviled as being Islamophobic. But Iraq was dropped from the ban. And it was after Iraq was dropped that Shihab Ahmed Shihab was able to get over here. So we can thank all those people who said that it was a racist immigration ban. And we have indication of why some people supported it and didn't believe that it was justifiably called racist at all.
Yeah, I'm still I can't really pay attention to what you're saying because of the name. It's just an awesome name. It tied in last night. I tweeted because I was reading the book of Nehemiah, and every year I read this name, Kol Hoza, and I just thought that's like the coolest name ever, Kol Hoza, right? And, I always thought it'd be cool to name a kid Kol Hoza, and you call him Cole for short. And
Yeah.
and so anyway, I was already thinking about cool names, and you came up with an even cooler one. Sorry, one second, Rob. I should not have mentioned. I thought it would be nice if I give people a little heads up as to what's coming tomorrow, so they're not all freaked out.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it would be good if they had a little heads up, so they're not freaked out tomorrow. But now they're freaked out now. and they're not even seeing the explanation. So now people are distracted. Let me just indulge them for just.
We need to cut this short. I understand. You've got a lot going on here.
Yeah. So let me just address them real quick, and then we'll continue with any news of the non-existent jihad. A bunch of the same comments here. Why is he deleting his channel? Because I figured out a better way to do it. Right. The great mystery of YouTube is how do you figure out a way to be more effective without YouTube having complete total control of when they ban you or not. Right? That's the riddle. Well, I think I've figured out the riddle. So I'm not talking about not being on platforms anymore. I'm talking this particular channel is massively defective for long-term purposes. I mean, they ban me every month pretty much. Sometimes like 2 or 3 times a month. We've gotten great at getting them to fix their stuff and overturn their bans. But at the end of the day, if I do things significantly differently, I can make myself much harder to ban, to where even if they do ban some video or something like that, it won't affect the larger picture. So it requires a good amount of restructuring. This is not a horrible thing. This is a good thing. And then you have Junior here say, if you delete your channel, all your videos will get lost. My videos are not lost. They've already been uploaded. They've already been re-uploaded somewhere else. So everything is safe. Again, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't know what I was doing. I've been plotting this for over a year. I've finally figured it out, and I'm ready to pull the trigger. Why? Because everything is up and running next month. So everything will be up and running. Everyone will know where everything is going. Everyone will know where to go and what to do and where content's going to be and how to stay in touch. And they can download the app and know where everything is hosted that is untouchable by YouTube. And it'll be a good thing. I will not be putting out less content or have less reach. I will be putting out more content with greater reach, greater effectiveness, because YouTube won't be able to throw this constant monkey wrench in the system. So don't be moaning and wailing. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. You'll have the full story tomorrow morning, so check it out then. All right, now everyone put that out of your mind. Sorry I brought it up. I really thought it was just going to be, okay, we'll check it out tomorrow, but it wasn't. It was, oh no, Back to Jihad, because keep in mind, there are people being slaughtered in the name of Allah is a little bit more important than me restructuring the way I do things, right? All right, go back. Back to Robert.
I'll move briskly, a little more briskly now, because I know you've got a lot to go on here tonight. But in any case, there's still quite a lot, and so we can perhaps put some of these to rest fairly quickly. Interesting story out of France. A couple was traveling in the area of Chantilly, where I understand they make lace, and the couple saw a hitchhiker. I didn't know people still did that, really, but of course I'm an old man. Anyway, they pick up the hitchhiker, and they take him to a hotel. And at the hotel, they help him to get a room. But to show his gratitude, then, this hitchhiker yelled, what do you think he yelled, David?
Peace and love. No, I want to continue my reign of 100% accurate answers. I'm going with Allahu Akbar here.
You are correct for $100. Yes, he yelled Allahu Akbar, and he stabbed her in.
I'm going with neck or throat here.
Neck.
Wow.
He stabbed her in the neck while screaming Allahu Akbar. And so that is France. Also in France, a gentleman entered the embassy of Qatar on the Champs-Elysees in Paris, and he yelled, David, what do you think he yelled?
I have to go with my bread and butter here and just keep saying Allahu Akbar.
You're on a roll.
Gosh.
I don't know how you keep doing it. He then beat a guard to death in the embassy. Nobody really knows why. They're trying to figure out his motive. In Germany, in Hamburg, a man yelling, David, what do you think he was yelling?
Peace and love, MAGA. I'm trying to think. Let me think. Allahu Akbar.
That's right.
Wow.
I don't know how you do it. Really, it's remarkable. Your powers of clairvoyance.
You know what? You know what? It's I come up with so many awesome ideas, and then I immediately forget them. We were doing a show. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before when you were doing this, and I said we should have a game show where you're the host, and we've got three contestants, and then you keep asking the question, and they keep guessing the wrong thing, and I just keep saying neck or Allahu Akbar, and I win all the money. But I said that, and then immediately forgot about it, and so after the show, people messaged me, hey, when are you going to do that show? I was like, what show? What are you talking about? And they had to describe it again because I had already forgotten it, but now I remember why it would be awesome.
Anyway, interesting thing that I've seen twice now this week. And the guy in Hamburg who was yelling Allahu Akbar burned a New Testament. And I also saw the burning of a Bible elsewhere in Europe this week, although that one came in just before the show. I don't have it queued up. Maybe we'll get to it next week. But in any case, it seems as if this is some new thing that some jihadis have fashioned upon. And I think they must be so disappointed when Christians don't react with the same horror and rage, rioting and killing, that Muslims react to bring when there are burnings of the Quran here and there. And of course, we just saw extended riots in Sweden over a Quran burning that was canceled, that never even happened. Just the idea of burning the Quran incited murderous rage. So this fellow, I guess he thought he was going to do a little payback and burned a New Testament while screaming Allahu Akbar on the street. Nobody seemed to care, oddly enough, although apparently he is wanted for lighting a fire out in a public street. But that's it.
Wow. Strange stuff. Quick comment from L here. Hey, yo, L says, you have our support. Hey, L, I was wondering if you'd like to run a channel. One of the ways to get around YouTube is to have content spread across multiple channels that are run by different people, so that striking one doesn't knock down all the channels. But if you'd like to run one of them, I will supply you with content and you can run a channel. So I don't know what kind of free time you have, but let me know, because you're one of the first people I thought of when I thought of someone who might want to run one of the channels to spread my content. Let me know what you think. All right, back to Jihad.
Uganda.
Becoming a horrible place for jihad.
Yes, you're right. In Uganda, at the Malakachomo Revival Church of God, Pastor Wilberforce Naya was preaching. I think these are all great names. And Sheikh Musyoya Anasi and his wife came to listen to Pastor Wilberforce Naya, and they actually converted to Christianity. What happened was church members visited the home of Sheikh Musyoya Anasi and prayed for his wife. She had been sick for 2 years. And after the prayer for healing, he said, she had been suffering from acute pain in her throat that made her not able to swallow dry food, etc., etc. After the prayers, she requested some cooked bananas, which was prepared and eaten with ease. These miracles led me and my wife to give our lives to Jesus as Lord and Savior. There was great jubilation in the area, whereupon mosque leaders showed up at the house. What were they yelling, David?
I got to go with Allahu Akbar again.
You are correct. Once again, really amazing.
That's like 30 straight or something.
Yeah, you should go on Jeopardy. It's astonishing, really. Anyway, they were carrying machetes, clubs, sticks, and marching toward our church building, chanting Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And the Christians fled. The Muslims destroyed the church and the home of Pastor Wilberforce Naya in retaliation, but they weren't able to get hold of Sheikh Musyoya Anasi and his wife, although they are certainly in danger of being killed if they are found. This is, of course, because Islam forbids not only proselytizing for another faith, but also conversion, and consequently the sheikh and his wife faced the death penalty for converting, and Pastor Wilberforce Naya the death penalty for having preached to them.
Yeah, you wonder why groups like CARE don't mount a campaign in places like Nigeria and Uganda to show people that their westernized, watered down, whitewashed version of Islam here is the correct one.
You really got to wonder, why on earth do they not do that?
One of life's great mysteries.
It is. In India, there's always quite a lot in India, a jihadi wearing a burqa, as a matter of fact, which was interesting, walked into a newly opened wine shop in Jammu and Kashmir, dropped a grenade through the window, causing an explosion which killed one employee and left 3 others injured. Now, of course, this is something we have seen before also, the destruction of liquor stores. I've seen videos out of Europe over the years, I'm sure you've seen them as well, David, of Muslims going into liquor stores, going down the aisle, just picking up bottle after bottle and throwing it to the ground until there's just a river of booze on the ground. And in this case, of course, one person was killed. What's interesting is that the suspect, the perpetrator, was wearing a burqa and thus consequently will almost certainly never be found. While in the West, if you raise national security issues regarding the hijab, niqab, or burqa, then of course you're Islamophobic. And yet stories like this, they come on a very regular basis. You remember last week or a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Australia and that absolute psychopath, Momena Shoma, the woman who, screaming Allahu Akbar, oddly enough, stabbed her landlord in the throat, is now in prison, and she was in prison. She pulled was it a knife or a
I
club?
think it was garden shears. Wasn't it garden shears or something?
Yeah, it was big. It was garden shears out of her hijab, and started to stab another inmate. And so the security issues of this clothing are never discussed, and it's Islamophobic even to bring them up. But they nonetheless are quite real.
Yeah, as someone who's spent quite a bit of time in prison, I've heard of all kinds. There's been all kinds of stabbings. People can make a shank out of almost anything. Toothbrush, hunk of metal that they get from somewhere, almost anything. But just having some garden shears is a new one to me.
Well, that shows, am I not mistaken, that shows that she was trusted, that she was allowed to be around these things that were potentially dangerous. So the prison officials were assuming that this was somebody who was reforming and probably had not a shred of evidence for that. Or maybe she was enrolled in a de-radicalization program.
And by the way, as someone who knows the system, she must have been extremely trusted, right? Because you have like lawn crews and so on that are, their job is to go around doing this stuff, but they are very careful about returning any sort of item. So if you're checking out some tool that you need to use, one, you're supervised while you have these things, and two, you're not getting to the rest of the population without returning that. And then even so, everything has its place. And even after everything's been returned, they still give you the full body pat down to make sure you're not hiding something on you. And so something like garden shears you can't hide that from a pat down unless they're just not patting you down because, hey, you can't put your hands on me, I'm a Muslim, and they say okay.
That's right, would be Islamophobic. All right. Several stories out of Nigeria, of course, unfortunately. One is actually, several of them center around not incidents of jihad violence, although there have been those, but Muslim clerics justifying the jihad violence that has taken place. The notorious incident that we discussed last week of this poor woman who was accused of blasphemy for saying, hey, would you mind keeping your religious messages off our college message board? And she was brutally murdered, burned alive, and so on. And there's a lot of fallout from that. This Muslim cleric in northern Nigeria, Bello Yabo, another good name. Not as good as Shihab Ahmed Shihab, to be sure. But Bello Yabo says, a young person in Sokoto insulted Allah's prophet. In Sokoto, we kill such people. We don't tolerate such idiocy in Sokoto. Here, we kill. When you touch the prophet, we become mad people. No talk of a person being out of his mind. Kill him. Anyone who touches the prophet, no punishment, just kill. Even if the person repents or recants, forgiveness is Allah's business. We must kill such people. Out of his mind, but buys a device, data, opens social media, and insults the prophet, kill him. Don't report as a grievance to any authority. Kill him, even if he is an Islamic teacher, much less a useless rascal.
Yeah, and I've seen several Muslim leaders post things like that on Twitter after the attack. And what's amazing is they're allowed to post things like that on social media. Meanwhile, our friend the apostate prophet just got banned for He just got banned. All he said was Muhammad was mentally ill or something like that, and that got him banned for calling for violence based on religious affiliation. Fortunately, he did win his appeal. A bunch of his fans raised a little uproar, and they restored it. But then when he announced that he'd been restored and unsuspended, and just said, Twitter should have apologized, Twitter then banned him for that. And he got that one restored and so on. But it's like, my goodness, just any random criticism of Muhammad can get you suspended. Meanwhile, if you're calling for actual murder or genocide, you're fine. So the rules are so interesting.
Indeed. And so we also had a Nigerian policeman who made a video that was widely distributed saying anyone insulting the Prophet should be killed, and anyone questioning about that is a kuffar. Very simple message. Irate youths in the Warji local government area of Bauchi State, also in Nigeria, set houses and shops on fire on the rumor of another blasphemous message by a different Christian woman named Rhoda Jatau. And so the police are battling these mobs in that area. That is what is coming out of Nigeria. In Turkey, leaflets were distributed quoting the Quran and calling for the stoning to death of LGBTI plus, I don't even know what this stuff stands for anymore, but anyway, of gay rights people, gay rights activists. They want them stoned to death, quoting Quran and Hadith, which is interesting since, as we have discussed before, non-Muslim politicians have no trouble understanding that the Quran and Hadith are entirely benign and compatible with Western secular pluralism. It's only some Muslims who seem to never get that idea and to instead find violence and calls for violence in it.
Very strange.
In Bangladesh, a woman was assaulted for wearing a short dress. She was, of course, assaulted by Muslims. Oh, and here's another story. Actually, I should have done this one with the Audi story because it's the same kind of thing. Western University in London, Ontario, in Canada. They put up a poster for the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. Biphobia. Anyway, all these phobias. Anyway, that's another story. The poster featured all these colorful people and various embraces and kisses and so on, and including two women wearing hijab looking like they were about to kiss each other. Whereupon Muslims were enraged and said that this imagery may be upsetting, was upsetting to some Muslims, was an insult to Islam. Singling out a Muslim religious symbol in that setting is inappropriate. What is portrayed is extremely disrespectful, insensitive, and completely unacceptable to the Muslim community. What's interesting about this is I'm sure that university officials had no idea. They thought Muslims were another marginalized community in their league of marginalized communities, along with their LGBTQ groups. And so they figured that they'd be marvelously diverse and multicultural by including a couple of hijabis on this gay rights poster. And then they were no doubt shocked beyond measure to find that it was considered offensive by Muslims. And so there are cracks in the intersectional alliance breaking out all over.
Yeah, and it is weird. I mean, it's like they get all their information about what Islam is from Ilhan Omar or something like that. And politically they're all in the same boat, and therefore, we can just combine this however we want in videos and advertisements and things like that, and not realizing that the vast majority of the world's Muslims are not thinking like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or anything. Interesting stuff. But the other thing is, it is interesting that even in other parts of the world, they're seeing various dynamics in light of what they think about how things are based on the fact that they're seeing everything in the West. So just to give an example, that like YouTube will ban a video. This happened multiple times, but if I point out like a Christian pastor being killed in Pakistan or Christians being persecuted in Pakistan, YouTube will ban that as hate speech. And if you figure out, if you get down to the bottom of it, you're looking through the policy saying, what in the world are they applying here? They view Muslims as a marginalized group, which is what you were saying, right? They're all these marginalized groups together. They're viewing Muslims as a marginalized group and Christians as the oppressor group. And so the oppressor group can't criticize the marginalized group, when what you're actually criticizing is, in Pakistan, the marginalized group is Christians and Hindus, and the oppressive group is the Muslims and jihadis. And so you're criticizing the oppressors who are oppressing the oppressed, and because these guys just can't get outside of their bubbles, they think, oh, it's oppressors criticizing a marginalized group, and they're just they can't get away from that.
Yep. That's always the paradigm that they see everything in. And so the stories that don't fit it, they just have no way to deal with them, generally just ignore them. An incident of that actually comes out of Pakistan with a Sunni Muslim stabbing an Ahmadiyya to death explicitly because of his faith. And so you gotta wonder if that were even reported in the West, how they would deal with it, since in the West the Ahmadis generally side with the Sunnis and the Muslim Brotherhood groups in the West and so on, and yet they're persecuted by the same groups in Pakistan. It's a paradoxical situation. Anyway, I know you got to go, so let's just rush through a couple things more here. There was another honor killing in Pakistan, a terrible story reminiscent of a story out of Texas from many years ago. A couple of sisters, Anisa Abbas and Aruj Abbas, they had moved to Spain and gotten out of Pakistan, but they had married men that the family did not approve of, and the family created a story to get them to come back to Pakistan. And they went back. They fell for the story. They went back, and they were murdered by the family in an honor killing. This is very much like the terrible story of Amina and Sarah Saeed, the two sisters in Texas who had an Egyptian Muslim father who was very oppressive and enraged at them over having non-Muslim boyfriends. And they had actually escaped and were living away from the house and were safe. But the family lured them back, and then the father killed them. This was on New Year's Day 2008, I believe, maybe 9. In any case, that was right in the Dallas area, right in the United States. And this kind of thing happens, unfortunately, quite frequently. In Iraqi Kurdistan, also this week, a Muslim stabbed his sister 28 times. Even though the multiple stabbings, he didn't kill her. And he did so because she married outside the will of the family. In France, a 90-year-old French Jewish man was murdered. He was pushed out a window by a Muslim, his Muslim neighbor, which is very much like a story from several years ago when an elderly Jewish woman was pushed out of a window by her Muslim neighbor who was yelling. What do you think he was yelling, David?
Allahu Akbar.
It's an uncanny. I don't know how you do it.
It's a gift.
It is. Plenty more. There was a Muslim child in India calling for a genocide of Hindus and Christians.
That one I saw. I saw that clip.
Oh, there you go. So we can end on that. I know you got to run.
Yeah. One thing is, since you mentioned and this has happened repeatedly over the years. You have a father or brother or something like that. The family is plotting to kill some girls for being too westernized. They flee. They eventually get lured back, and then the husband or the father or the brother kills them. And we've seen this over and over and over again. And yet, I recall when Rivka Berry's father threatened to kill her and she fled, and then the entire media of the world and politicians across the board were all saying, no, send her back to her father. Let's get her back to her father. And you and me and Pamela Geller and a few others were saying, no, that's a really, really bad idea. We were the monsters and bigots and Islamophobes of the world. When it's pretty, I mean, it seems pretty commonsensical. Even if you think you're right and think that, Rivka's making this up, even if you think you're right, it seems you would want to err on the side of caution that these honor killings do happen. And that even if you think it's just like a 1% chance that he's actually intending to kill her, that you would want to make sure that she's safe from him. And yet it was just Islamophobic. And just imagine any of these other cases, where a woman flees her husband because he's threatening to kill her, or girls flee their parents because their parents or the brothers plotting to kill her. If in any of these situations, while the girl had fled and was safe, if you were to come along and intervene and say, do not let that girl go back there, you would have been condemned as a monster, even though they were actually ultimately killed. And so just a sick world. All these complete morally insane people who masquerade as journalists and politicians and so on. It's when they say really stupid things. There are actual real life consequences to these things. I mean, people actually die over these idiotic ideas that they keep spreading. And so anyway, what do we got? They got, every spot with every bit of power for controlling what people think they've got control of. And what do we got? Just a ton of fearlessness and relentlessness on our side.
Yep. And the truth. Reality always
that helps. Having reality on your side does help. But can you imagine, just what we've been up against over the years? When someone changes their mind, it's usually to agree with us. But for years, it's been politicians, journalists everywhere, educators everywhere, entertainers everywhere, and they're all on the same page. All the leaders of the tech CEO, the tech platforms, everyone, all the trust and safety teams of everywhere you can communicate, everyone's on the same page, bombarding people with the same ideas, and people are still seeing through all the nonsense just because we've got reality on our side. Can you imagine if that ever shifted to where now you could be honest, and now reporters would tell the truth, and now politicians would tell the truth? I think Jihad would be squirming and writhing in its death knell within a couple of years.
It never would have spread so far in the West, to be sure, if we'd been able to tell the truth about it on a larger scale.
Yep. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, I will be deleting my channel, but we will still be here next week, so it won't be by then. And Robert, we might want to try here sometime next month transitioning the show to your channel and see how that works out.
Well, let's hope anybody would watch over there, but we can give it a try. Well,
yeah, fortunately, the people who watch, we have enough time to tell them, hey, that's where it's going to be. And so they can actually start spreading the word and so on. So
I should actually do some videos. Maybe that'll liven the place up a little bit.
Yeah. I can help you out with that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Robert. Thank you all for joining us for this week in Jihad. It's always possible. It's theoretical. It's logically possible that there will be no Jihad news this coming
Yep.
week.
This could
But
be the last episode.
but as we pointed out, reality, man, reality sucks sometimes. So we'll see you all next week.